If we want to have a conversation about things that should not be for profit, healthcare is obviously on this list, and we've been talking about that for years. And that seems to often be the one that is the most obvious to the largest number of people, although there's still some debate about that in some political circles. We could talk about whether education should be for profit. We could talk about whether student lending should be for profit or certain types of housing or whatever else. But increasingly, we should be talking about the internet, which at this point is really just a utility, which underlies almost everything we do at this point. And I'm going to probably end up repeating this again, but to be a full participant in 2019 society and economy, you effectively need access to the internet and probably high-speed internet at that. And there are individual towns that have done what's called municipal broadband. But the reason that they've done this is that usually those towns are too small for the big internet service providers to want to come in and set up shop and be the monopoly provider in those municipalities. And so I was thrilled to see that 2020 Democratic presidential candidate and Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren put out her plan yesterday for an internet public option, along with her plan, by the way, to bring back net neutrality. And as we've talked about with Medicare for All, a public option is better than nothing. It may not be the ideal, and with internet, it's probably similar, but I still want to deal with this in detail today because it could be a really big improvement over what we have. And here is Elizabeth Warren's idea. You pass a federal law to prevent states from restricting towns that want to do public broadband. That's number one. Number two, you do a federal grant for $85 billion, which will be set up to cover 90% of the costs for utility co-ops, nonprofits, cities, and counties that want to lay fiber for their own broadband networks. The federal government will subsidize 90% of it. So the city, town, co-op, whatever, only has to pay for 10% of it. For-profit entities would not be eligible for that grant, which will push a lot of internet service over to nonprofits and co-ops and municipalities, which would be great. To qualify for the money, the organization that is looking to do this is going to have to agree to provide at least one affordable plan for low-income people, a special low price to increase access to internet, particularly for low-income people. And meanwhile, yeah, Elizabeth Warren would also restore net neutrality. She would appoint commissioners, which would regulate the internet as a common carrier. That's a huge, huge thing. So the breaking news here, which is not breaking news to lots of people in my audience, is that both sides aren't the same on many issues. When they are, I tell you, I've been crystal clear that too many issues have Republicans and Democrats basically working together to maintain the status quo and to reinforce that status quo. When Democrats require criticism, I'm there criticizing them. But on lots of important issues, the two parties are not the same. One issue we've talked about already, and could it ever be more clear than now under Donald Trump rather than Hillary Clinton, choosing judges in the United States, Supreme Court justices and lower level judges, as we talked about on the bonus show this week. Donald Trump's power to do that has had such a significant impact that will be long lasting. Donald Trump's judicial choices, more celebrated in the Supreme Court, but also in lower level courts, as we've talked about, will have an effect on the judiciary of the United States for decades to come. Hillary Clinton would have been very different on that. You might not like her position on whatever, but Democrats and Republicans drastically different on that. It's very similar with the internet regulation and net neutrality. In 2018, all Democrats and 3 Republicans voted to restore net neutrality, okay, in the House. A few months ago, 231 Democrats and 1 Republican in the House voted to restore net neutrality. And then Mitch McConnell, Republican Senate Majority Leader, blocked it from even coming up in the Senate at all. So we need to support candidates with the right views on this issue. I love that Elizabeth Warren, I've made no secret, I think it's great that she's been running one of the most substantive campaigns of 2020 so far. Slowly but surely creeping up in the polls, and she did it again in a couple of recent polls, which I don't have time to talk about today, but maybe we'll deal with on Monday. She has been doing that with substantive policy proposals, no cheap shots, no, debate kill shot attempts the way some other candidates have been doing, just policy, detailed policy which she's increasingly good at explaining in clear and direct terms. And that's a really good thing. So bottom line, in 2019, you essentially need internet, and I would argue not just internet, but high-speed internet to fully participate in society and in the economy, period, flat out. Thus, it should be a public utility. Anything short of that falls short of the goal, but these public option programs, like what Elizabeth Warren is suggesting here, are absolutely great ideas. I think that legally they are quite simple. So when Elizabeth Warren talks about, oh, I want to pass a wealth tax, okay, you could like the idea, not like the idea, think it's the right way or the wrong way to reduce inequality, think that inequality isn't an issue, but legally it will be very complex to get a wealth tax passed. That's just the reality. This public option internet plan and the reinstatement of net neutrality would not be legally complicated. It could be complicated in terms of lobbyist opposition and massive ad dollars lobbying just average people to be against it, and massive lobbying dollars lobbying politicians to be against it. That will be complicated. But when it comes to the legality of doing it, there are not constitutional issues, there are not commerce issues or any other issues that I am aware of. It's merely the political will, and that's why this is absolutely fantastic. Let me know what you think about these and other net neutrality and internet utility ideas. I'm on Twitter at @dpakman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show, and the David Pakman Show is now on Twitch at twitch.tv/David Pakman. Hope you'll follow us there and subscribe with Twitch Prime if you have an Amazon Prime account. Do you stand for women's rights and for the environment? There's a phone company that also does, and that's Credo Mobile. Credo is the only phone company in the US supporting the same causes you do. Causes like fighting climate change, protecting reproductive freedom, immigrants' rights. Every month, Credo donates $150,000 to groups like Planned Parenthood and the ACLU and the Rainforest Action Network and others. Meanwhile, other phone companies are spending millions of dollars pushing mega mergers through and funding right-wing politicians. You're making choices every time you spend a dollar. Your mobile phone is one of those choices, and you can switch to Credo Mobile now. As a reward, you will get 12 pints of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, a pint a month for 12 months, and you'll get coverage on the nation's largest, most reliable network with low rates and a full selection of smartphones, including the latest models from the top brands. Make the switch today. Go to credomobile.com/Pakman or enter the offer code Pakman at checkout. That's CREDO.com/Pakman.